Hello everyone, welcome to another Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. review. This is not the second but the third time I've tried recording this because of various computer issues. Of course, when it actually comes to the last two episodes of the entire series, when I've been having smooth sailing when it's come to producing these reviews the entire season, now all of a sudden I have problems when we're on the last two episodes, because that's how life works, I guess. So I talked for 15 minutes about the first episode, and then I was ready to move on to talk about the second one, and then my computer crashed, so I lost everything. I tried it again, same results, so here's hoping you're actually listening to this somewhere in the future, and I'm not just speaking into the void. So, deep breath. Alright, so yeah, first episode of the final two is The End is at Hand, and it's a good episode. I've talked about it twice now, so I'm going to just try to quickly cover my bullet points that I had talked about, that I talked about very well, but then, I just lost all of that. I just lost that recording. So, let me see here. Fitz using the quantum realm to do time travel shenanigans, that's clever. That's a good tie into Endgame. I like that. Gemma losing her marbles there for a little bit, losing her memory because the implant was dissolved. I got major Doctor Who vibes off of that from when the Doctor regenerates. They're always in that state of, I'm not feeling well. I'm remembering everything while remembering nothing at the same time. I need to have a little bit of bed rest unless I'm Matt Smith, and then I'm just running around all the time. So I kind of got some Doctor Who vibes from that, which was fun considering that we know Simmons is a Doctor Who fan based on stuff she said in previous episodes. The whole bit about trying to get the big hangar doors open on the Chronicom ship was hilarious. I love the, so I saw it coming, but, Mac's like, all right, we're going to blow open these doors and give the Chronicom something to think about. And I'm like, okay, that's going to do absolutely nothing. He presses the button, the missiles fly, and then they just don't do anything at all, and there's just that moment of silence. That was, I saw it coming, but it was still hilarious. That was very well done. And then using the Chronicoms to increase the payload of their missiles to actually successfully blow open the doors. That was ingenious. That was really well played out. It was also hilarious. That was a good payoff to the joke from earlier. That was very, very well done. I love that so much. John Garrett. So yeah, we have now a second death of John Garrett in this show. It kind of annoyed me. It kind of annoyed me at first because I was really super, super interested in seeing what a good guy John Garrett would be like. But then, they teleport into the Swordfish Lounge, and then he's just immediately popped in the head, which was kind of annoying in the moment when it happened. It's like, oh, come on. I was looking forward to seeing good guy John Garrett. But I ended up being okay with it after thinking about it for a little bit for a couple reasons. The biggest reason being the person that did kill him was Victoria Hand. That was awesome. That, it's like, that's some good poetic justice there, because Garrett was the reason she died in the original Prime timeline. So that was really cool that they managed to make it Victoria Hand be the one to kill him, and a little bit of payback. I know Ward was the one that pulled the trigger in season 1, and he was the one to actually kill her. But, all that stuff was, Garrett was partially responsible for that. So, yeah, let's see here. Quantum Realm talked about that. I think it was this episode where Cora got stunned. Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah, this Daisy has that talk with Cora, and then she gets stunned and thrown in the brig. So, she started to come around a little bit. Sybil was kind of slowly starting to lose it a little bit, because the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents just weren't following her time stream. They just kept defying the odds. She had that line. I think it may have been the last episode and not this first episode, but she does say at one point, it's like, despite what the odds say, this team always beats the odds. And it's like, yep, that's how this show's been going for 7 seasons now. So, yeah, I think I pretty much covered everything in less than 5 minutes, and what took me 15 minutes to talk about the first couple times I tried this out, because I actually went on and talked a little more in depth the first time. But I'm not doing that again because I don't want to. I'm kind of over it. So yeah, I've covered the first episode. Now let's talk about the last episode of the series, What We Are Fighting For. Man, was this a good? This was a great final episode. I have some qualms with it. I have a couple qualms with it, but they're not really big. It's not like some series finales where it's just like, okay, yeah, that was just kind of whatever. No, this was a good series finale. It left off exactly where it needed to. It felt right. I feel like maybe the bad guys were defeated just sort of maybe a little too easily. There wasn't really this big moment of, we didn't get a final moment with S.H.I.E.L.D, which I thought was weird, where Coulson's been brought to the bridge, and both of them kind of playing the we've outsmarted each other, but really only one side has outsmarted the other. And so it's like, now it's my turn to smile. You know why? It's like, because this next thing's gonna happen. It's like, what's happening next? And then May drops down. It's like the cavalry comes in. And that's the last we see of S.H.I.E.L.D. She's just unconscious on the floor. I'm assuming she's unconscious. I don't know. That she could have been dead after that. But I'm assuming she's unconscious on the floor from that. And then she just blows up in the ship. We don't get this final moment where we see her accept her defeat or anything like that. She just kind of blows up, which a little disappointed about that, because I think that's always one of the most interesting moments with the villains, is whenever they come to grips with what they've done, or they despair over the fact that they've lost, or and they get their just desserts or whatever. I always find those moments with the villains interesting, and we don't really get a final moment with either Nathaniel, Malik, or with S.H.I.E.L.D. So again, I suppose that's a complaint, but it's not really. It's just it's honestly kind of a throwaway. It's whatever. I would have liked to have those moments, and who knows, maybe they did film those moments, but it just got for S.H.I.E.L.D. at least. Nathaniel, maybe not, but I would have liked to see some of those moments, but it's but we didn't get them, and it's not really a big huge deal. It didn't break anything. So, because Nathaniel, I guess, just went boom, or he froze in space or something like that. So there wasn't really a chance to get a final moment with him. But I would have liked a final moment with S.H.I.E.L.D, but oh well, it's not really that big a deal. So, since I've been talking, that was more just like a little whatever throwaway complaint. This one's going to be a more serious complaint, and it's going to be what I've complained about the last couple episodes. Sorry, guys. I just don't buy the relationship between Daisy and Sousa. I just don't. Again, maybe it's one of those things where if they had spent more time on it, if this had been a full 22 episode season, maybe I would have been able to get behind it. I can't get behind. I just can't get behind that. I don't see it. I don't understand it. Maybe I don't know. I just don't buy that at all. They didn't really reinforce, because again, Sousa's mind got wiped because of all the time loops. So then they haven't really connected. They connected. Then his mind got wiped because time loops, and so now they've had to reconnect. So we've seen this. So we've seen the start of this relationship like twice now, and we see it start, and then the series ends, and then and so we don't really get it really feels like a footnote. It feels like a footnote on this entire series. I feel like you could have cut that, and it wouldn't have really it would not have drastically changed anything whatsoever. I do see that there's definitely a connection between Daisy and Sousa. I will not argue that, but I never saw that as anything romantic. That really just seemed like Sousa is now on board with this team. He sees them as his family, as his teammates, and he's going to do whatever it takes to protect them because they protected him, and how hard a fighter he sees Daisy as. He's having these flashbacks to his unit from the war and everything, and now he's found a new family that he's going to fight for. taking it further into the romance territory of Daisy, I never saw that. I just didn't buy it. So sorry. I just wasn't really on board with it. Granted, S.H.I.E.L.D. as a show in general has always been a show in terms of their relationships where either I totally buy it or I don't buy it at all. And there's been a couple of those. For instance, Fitzsimmons, awesome, perfect, great coupling. Obviously they've been tortured long enough, and I'll get to Fitzsimmons later. Go in depth on them later. But awesome characters, awesome relationship between the two, awesome actors involved with that. Just awesome all the way through. A little annoying that they're separated and brought back together over and over and over and over again. But overall that was a really good ship. Bobber Bobby and Hunter from season 2 and 3. I buy that one as well, because there was they had been a thing, then they broke up, then they got back together, and you can see the mutual love and admiration there. And we spent enough time with those characters to where I bought it. Even as weird as this one was, Ward and what was it, Agent 33, I think, from season 2, who for part of the show was wearing other people's faces, so I can't even remember what she really looked like, because she had that hologram mask that Black Widow wore in Winter Soldier on and it got glitched to her face, so she was Daisy for a time, she was May for a time. That relationship I even really bought. There seemed like, these two actually are totally in love. I would love to see them just go off and leave Hydra and S.H.I.E.L.D. behind and then just be happy together. That would have been great, but of course, this isn't a show where people really get to live happily ever after until the end of the show. So, obviously that did not end well. I even bought that relationship. But there's a couple others that I wasn't really totally on board for, that I never really understood. This might upset a few people out here, but one of those was May and Coulson. I never understood that one. That one seemed like it was pandering to like a small subsect of fans out there that wanted it to happen. I never understood that. I didn't see any. I mean, obviously they were good friends. They were good partners in terms of workplace relationship, that thing, they had this history together, sure, but I never saw any sort of romantic chemistry there. When they started doing that with the LMD stuff, I was like, oh, please no. It's like, now what would have been an interesting twist is if Coulson ended up falling for LMD May, and then, LMD May ended up sacrificing herself, and then he talked to real May about it, and then she said, I don't have those feelings for you at all. That would have been super interesting. But no, the only reason LMD May had those feelings for Coulson is because real May had those feelings for Coulson. It's like, I never bought that relationship. That's just not one that I really understood. So I guess the writers maybe sort of kind of felt the same way, because when the show ends, they're not together. They've just grown. It even seems like their friendship is sort of kind of fractured because of everything that's happened to them. Coulson's died like 3 times. May now has these empath powers. So it's kind of. Obviously, there's still a big respect between them, but they're not. It doesn't seem like that they're as close as they used to be, even as friends. There's so much that's happened between them where they just can't be together, even as friends right now. So maybe that's a little harsh. Maybe that's a little hyperbolic, because obviously they were very friendly to each other in that final. And I'll talk in depth about that here in a minute as well. They were very friendly with each other in that final Skype call, that final Zoom call, but. I don't know. I just never saw them as a romantic pairing, and I just never understood that. And it kind of seems like maybe the writers were like, I don't know, maybe this could work, and then it didn't work, so they got rid of it. I don't know. But yeah, so Daisy Sousa, same thing. I don't see it at all. It seems like they're kind of forcing two characters to be together, and it doesn't make sense. But ooh well. The Shield just has a couple of those relationships that I just never really bought. It'll be interesting to see if some of you other guys had some similar feelings about some of these others, like Nathaniel and Cora. Again, I didn't understand that one at all, but that's one of those. I don't think we were supposed to understand it. I think that was one of, bad guys are crazy, so they're going to be crazy together. And it's like, and then that was one that I don't think we were supposed to understand, because there was all that weird brainwashing stuff going on. So yeah, let's see here. I suppose since I just went on about all these relationships that I have to talk about the relationship again. I touched on it a second ago, but I guess we'll just go ahead and talk about it in general here. Fitzsimmons. I've said in a couple of these reviews that Fitzsimmons were almost sort of kind of the heart and soul of the show. They kind of ended up becoming the heart and soul of the show. Man, I am so happy for them that they finally got their happily ever after. It was a long road. Fitz had to die, and they had to replace him with earlier in the timeline Fitz. But they finally got their happily ever after. Man, what a long journey those two have been on. I mean, the show started off, and they were just workplace friends. They were very good friends, but they were just workplace friends. They were almost like siblings. They kind of bickered back and forth. It's like that first episode where they're on the bus and everything. It's like, man, it's like they look so young too. You go back and you watch the trailer for the first season. Everyone looks so young because it's 7 years ago. But it's like that part of that first season. It's like like they're not related, but they're almost like twins. They're almost like siblings. They finish each other's sentences and all this stuff. They're a good pair. They're a match made in heaven, but not necessarily romantically. So it seems like. But then, because then even Fitz sort of kind of had a little bit of a crush maybe on Skye early on. That went away pretty quick, but as time went on, it's like, Fitz is like sort of kind of head over heels for Simmons, and she's oblivious, but he doesn't want to do anything to ruin her. And to ruin their relationship. So that kind of became clear because him being so distraught whenever she got that Chitauri virus, and then the whole thing is like, if you hadn't knocked me out, I would have jumped out of the plane for you instead of Ward. It's like, and I have no doubt that he would have, because of all the effort he goes through later to save her. I mean, being stuck at the bottom of the bloody ocean, and then essentially knowing that he's killing himself by giving her the one oxygen tank, and then he ends up brain dead, and then with all this brain damage that takes half a season to repair, and it's like, my goodness. And then finally he starts to get better. He does say to her, it's like, hey, they finally have this, it's like, hey, you want to go out to dinner? Okay, yeah, let's go out to dinner. She's all happy. It's like, these two are gonna have they're finally gonna do this thing. They're finally gonna date. Oh no, Simmons has been sucked into a big stone portal thing. What the heck was that? What just happened? We were mad. I remember me and my family being mad when that happened at the end of season 2. We're like, what? What? I hate these cliffhangers. Come on, S.H.I.E.L.D. It's like, season 1 of S.H.I.E.L.D. left off on a cliffhanger, but it wasn't as massive as Simmons being sucked into a stone portal thing. It's like, that was that was evil. That was mean. That was like, come on, writers, that's not nice. So then, of course, she was stuck on Mavith, and then she kind of fell for that astronaut guy that may or may not have been Hive the entire time. And then finally they get back, or Fitz gets her back, and then because he's such a great guy, it's like, if you love this guy, then I'm gonna find him for you because I love you and I want you to be happy, even if it means you're not, even if it means you're someone that's not me. And then, he says, it's probably for the best because we're cursed. Now we're going to make out a little bit in the lab, and I'm going to reiterate, we're cursed. And then, they go to get him back. It doesn't necessarily work. And then, Coulson kills Ward, and then Hive takes over Ward, and that ended up being a whole thing. Oh boy! And then they finally get together, and then they're kind of happy for a little while. Then they get sent to the future, but Fitz doesn't go with them, so they're separated by time and different timelines. Then Fitz freezes himself with Enoch, and then he ends up in the future, and then they get back from the future, and then I just totally skipped over where they were in the framework. Holy cow, the framework! Why did I skip over that? That was ridiculous. It's like, Fitz was evil. He probably would have killed her. That was nuts. That was crazy. Evil Fitz. Oh, how did I leave that out? And then, then they get back and he's all traumatized from that. And then it's like, okay, we're over that. Then they get sent to the future. He freezes himself, blah, 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 blah. He comes back from the future. He has a mental break where he becomes evil again, but not evil. He kind of becomes Two-Face from Batman. It's where, and then he dies. That rubble falls on him, and he freaking dies. And then it's like, oh no, what a tragic ending. But wait, Fitz from earlier in his personal timeline is still out there. We can go rescue him. Here now we've got the first part of season 6, and then it's like, season 6 happens, and it's like, it will, but it will drastically change the course of your lives. And they're just like, yeah, what else is new? So. Man, and then for most of this season, Fitz is MIA. Where's Fitz? Where's he gone? I don't know. Is he dead? Maybe he is. Maybe he isn't. And then finally, at the end of the end is near, or the end approaches, whatever. I'm too worked up to remember episode titles right now. He comes back. He's in the quantum realm, and then Simmons doesn't bloody remember him. It's like, we're on the last 2 episodes. The writers wanted one last little wrench in the works of them being happy thrown in there. Goodness me. But then, at the end of the day, they get their happily ever after because they had a kid. They had their daughter. Oh my gosh, finally they can go off and be happy. Oh, it's like that was such a great moment where it's like where it all clicked and the seeds the seeds that they had laid out, it all clicked, and you're like, aha, in retrospect it seems totally obvious. But now I understand, because they put the pillows in the pod. Why did they put the pillows in the pod? Wait, why was Fitz talking about the blood work? What are you talking about? It's because Simmons had a baby, and then they're putting their baby girl in the pod to rest there while Fitz went to the quantum realm. And then, as he said to Simmons right before they left, he says, "For everyone but us, it will be but a moment." And then it's like, oh, what does that mean? And Ian, with his accent, it almost didn't quite understand what he said. It's like, oh, what are they talking about? And then Simmons finally remembers. She remembers Fitz. She remembers what they're fighting for. She runs over and she opens up the pod. And it's like, oh, they named their kid Ayla after the star cluster that she liked as a kid. And it's like, I kind of wonder where the blonde hair came from. I mean, not that I should really question that. My parents are both dark-headed. I'm dark-headed. My sister, blonde. So, I mean, it happens. It happens in families. That's just how genetics work sometimes. But, and then here's this cute little British girl with her cute little British accent. And you're like, Mummy, you said it would be a long time, but it didn't seem like a long time at all. It's like adorable. Just adorable. And then when they're in the Zoom hologram call at the end, Fitz calls her the little monkey. It's like, this little monkey's punching me as hard as she can in the leg. She's bored. She wants to do something. It's like, it's so sweet and adorable. I love it so much. It's like, that smile Simmons gives as she watches Fitz play with their kid together. It's like, oh, this is the wholesome stuff that S.H.I.E.L.D. excels at. I love it. I just love it. Man, Fitz Simmons. Now that's a great pairing. I am so glad they got their happily ever after with their kid, and then eventually I guess they'll end up with a Deke, maybe. Oh yeah, Deke. We need to talk about Deke. Deke stayed in the other timeline, which Yeah, makes sense. He seems like the prime candidate because, he's kind of, he's been jumping around timelines for a while now. So funny too, because Suicid's like, I'm out of time, and it's like blah blah blah, he's gonna make the whole noble sacrifice, and Deke just goes, it's like, no, idiot, it's me, I'm the one that needs to stay, I'm from a dead timeline anyway, so, so that was pretty funny. I really liked that. And then he's like, I'm kind of like a rock god here anyway, so. So he stays behind, he gets them sent off, and then the other S.H.I.E.L.D. agents are like, so are you the guy that's in charge now? And he just turns around and he has that dramatic moment where he goes, yes. So great. I kind of, again, this is one of my like little quote-unquote complaints. That's not really a complaint. I wish we had seen a wrap-up for him. The creators, they made that mention like he's probably playing Madison Square Garden or something, and then the creators mentioned that he would be the new director of S.H.I.E.L.D. in this new timeline he's in, but he would also be this rock star at the same time, because who would expect, it's like the perfect cover, who would expect this very public person to actually be the super spy leader? So it'd make perfect sense. I really liked Deke. That was a fun character. He started out as the super serious Star-Lord character with just a little bit of the goofiness Star-Lord has, and then as the character existed for longer, he did a 180 flip where he turned into the super goofy Star-Lord with just a little bit of the seriousness. So it was really funny to see Deke kind of evolve throughout the 3 seasons he was on. I really enjoyed Deke as a character. That was fun. He was a fun character, and that was a good send off for him. I mean, he had already wrecked that timeline so much by passing off Songs from the Future as his own, that it's like, at this point this is just his sandbox. He can go play. in this new timeline of his. So maybe he can find someone to give lemons to. Oh boy. So so that's Deke. So I suppose kind of just wrap up with the characters where they left off. Mac is the new Nick Fury. He's the new director of S.H.I.E.L.D. He's on the helicarrier. He's got his new location has a view. That's for certain. That is for certain. Yo-Yo is an agent. She's like the second in command. I guess she's like the Maria Hill now, and she's running things out with Davis and Piper. Davis is back, that was the one thing Simmons says, we will give you anything you could ever want. She wanted an LMD Davis. That's super sweet, because again, that's another quote unquote relationship that was super interesting, where it's like, are these, could these two get together, or are they just gonna be that kind of bickering brother sister type? And I guess they're just that bickering brother and sister type. But that's nice that they brought Davis back as an LMD. I don't know where they got the brain scans for him, because he wasn't uploaded to the framework, and that's where they got Coulson's brain scans. So I question where and how they did that. But I suppose they still had the Zephyr. They still had a time machine, so I suppose they could, and they also had access to the quantum realm. So I guess Fitz could have gone back and then did a quick brain scan of Davis, and then brought it forward. The details aren't necessary. The point is that we have LMD Davis running around, so that's fun. May is now a teacher, which is fitting. That's with her new empath powers. Future rocket Inhuman boy whose name I forget. I guess he's one of her students now. It's like, hey, we're 5 minutes late for class. It's like, no, you're late. Me, I'm lecturing. For me, it's a dramatic entrance. That's great. And then the new S.H.I.E.L.D. Academy is called Coulson Academy. That's so great. Fitz is retired. I guess Simmons is still doing some sort of science work, but they're mostly retired, just living with their kid now. That's awesome. I guess Daisy is part of S.H.I.E.L.D. now. I mean, they're running around in space on Zephyr 1, or Zephyr 3 as she called it, so I guess I've got more than one Zephyr now, which makes sense. So I guess, I guess that's Sword. Is that gonna be Sword? Oh, excuse me. And she's in space with her sister and her boyfriend, husband, question mark. This relationship, I don't really care. Like, I just went on about how I don't buy that, so it's whatever at this point. But she's happy. I'm glad Daisy's happy. She's you know she had no one at the beginning of this show, and now she has this whole great big family. Even if they're not together, she still has this great big family. That's great. And then Coulson, it kind of seemed like Coulson was maybe going to switch himself off, but he's just going to take some time for himself, see the world, recruit some S.H.I.E.L.D. agents, and he's got Lola. He's got Lola, so he's not going to be alone. He's got Lola with that new black paint job and the hover boosters, and it's, to put in his words, cool. So yeah, I mean, they kind of tied up all the loose ends. They finished it off. There were a couple things that I sort of kind of wish that they had thrown in there, like a really quick Samuel L. Jackson appearance, but yeah, it makes sense why they didn't do that. I was also sort of secretly kind of hoping for Ward, like maybe good guy Ward is working with Deke in Deke's timeline now or something like that. Because, again, Ward was such a big player in the first 3 seasons. But, I don't know. Looking back, I guess that character did get a proper send-off of, potential good future for him. He could have turned out differently. He could have been a good person with the framework, as we saw there. So, I guess they didn't need to bring him back. That was just kind of it's like, one last ounce of fan service there. But, it ended as perfectly as it needed to, and I'm getting a little emotional here. It's been a ride. It's been really amazing watching this show for 7 seasons. I didn't cry at the end of S.H.I.E.L.D. like I cried at the end of Clone Wars, but Clone Wars was so emotional because Clone Wars did not have a happy ending. But we knew that going in. That was one of the things with the prequel era of Star Wars in general, is that we know it doesn't have a happy ending. But you still want it to have a happy ending, but it's not going to. So it further emphasizes that sense of tragedy. S.H.I.E.L.D. had a happy ending. S.H.I.E.L.D. had a happy ending, so that's why I think I'm not as emotional over S.H.I.E.L.D. ending as I was with Clone Wars, because S.H.I.E.L.D. got a happy ending. The question still kind of remains, are they in the original Prime MCU timeline that we started off with Iron Man? Are they in another still alternate timeline? Because did they leave the Prime MCU timeline when they got jumped to the future, and now are they in some alternate timeline or something like that? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if the creators know, but the one thing about S.H.I.E.L.D. ending, though, is that we have a pin in all these characters now. We know where these characters are in the MCU. And then with Kevin Feige taking over the TV division now, because they're working on Falcon and Winter Soldier and WandaVision and the Hawkeye series, that's kind of, it seems like it's stuck in development. Well, actually, they're all kind of stuck in development right now because of the virus. But I don't know, maybe now with these characters kind of, it's like, here's where the characters are and we're leaving them there. Maybe now that will then open up the possibility for them to appear in the movies, because that would be so great. I mean, I've kind of considered making a standalone video about this. I think I may have mentioned this in one of these past reviews. I've been doing this for 12 weeks now, so I've kind of forget what I've mentioned, what I haven't mentioned. Sorry about that. But I've kind of been contemplating making a standalone video about the MCU isn't all connected like they liked you to think, they would like you to think it is. But I don't know. I think I'll just talk about it here right now. Where 2015, 2016, that was like the height of the MCU being all interconnected and stuff, and with connections all around. Because you had the movies, and then the movies crossed over with TV, and TV crossed over with the movies. But then after that, things really started to divide. You have these references to the Battle of New York and the Avengers and the Marvel Netflix stuff. in Daredevil with newspaper clippings, and then Jessica Jones name drops the Hulk and his friends, or the big green guy and his friends. They never actually call him the Hulk. I don't think they ever mentioned Captain America. Season 3 of Jessica Jones does mention the Raft, but the Raft is such a ubiquitous, this is a thing that exists in the Marvel Universe, that it doesn't necessarily mean that she's talking about the MCU Raft. It could be a totally other, it could be the Raft. At this point, the Netflix stuff with, all the non-Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. TV shows kind of exist in their own little Marvel universe, which is fine, but considering the fact that the original intention with those was that they existed in the MCU proper, it kind of takes some of the shine away from them. They're still great shows. Iron Fist is like the only one that's really just kind of eh. The first season was just okay. The second season was better, but it still wasn't fantastic. Then I have loved all of the others. Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage. I'm kind of upset with Luke Cage because they ended on a cliffhanger, and then they're not going to be able to go back to that, which is annoying. At least for right now. Punisher, I loved the Punisher. The Punisher was so good. It may be my favorite of that bunch. But even then, that's not where it ends, because you also had Inhumans. Let's just agree not to talk about Inhumans. I didn't even finish that. I watched like 3 episodes. I'm like, all right, I'm out. I can't finish this. And this has ties to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I can't even finish this. That's how bad it was. So we won't even talk about Inhumans, but there was Cloak and Dagger. Cloak and Dagger was actually a decent show. I liked Cloak and Dagger. But Cloak and Dagger had its own set of problems where, here's the metaphor I'm going to use for Cloak and Dagger, where it's someone running a race, right? They're running this race, and they're in the lead. They're doing really well. They're gonna finish pretty high up there. Nothing can stop them. But then their shoelaces become untied, and right at the very end, they trip and they fall, and everyone runs right past them, and then they have to stumble to the finish line. They end up in last place. That was season 1 of Cloak and Dagger. Really good build up, really good setup. But then the season finale was just meh. It was really just kind of meh. I was actually kind of confused by it. It's like, wait, hold on. Okay, that's how it ends. All right, whatever. Season 2, same thing. The next year, this person comes back to run this race again. They've learned their lesson. You'd think. They're not going to have the same thing's not going to happen to them twice. They start the race. They're doing really well. They are about there to the finish line, but then the other shoe becomes untied, and then they trip again. Same place, same time. Again, everyone runs right past them. Excuse me. And they come in last place again. Again, 2 seasons in a row, Cloak and Dagger stumbled across the finish line. The Cloak and Dagger could not figure out how to do good season finales, even with this fantastic build-up. Season 2 of Cloak and Dagger was actually kind of phenomenal. I really liked season 2 of Cloak and Dagger, especially considering that season 1 had villains, but it didn't have super villains. Where season 2 of Cloak and Dagger did have super villains. There was this guy that could leech into your mind and stuff like that, which was really cool. And they did, and because it was a somewhat lower budget show, they had to kind of do these cost-saving workarounds for how they would visualize that, and it was kind of really cool and creative. And so that was a really cool bad guy, but then the season finale was just kind of which is disappointing. And then Runaways. I haven't even watched Runaways. I kind of want to watch Runaways because I know that they cross over with Cloak and Dagger at the end of season 3, or something like that. So I kind of want to watch it for that. But I still haven't seen Runaways. Runaways gets weird from what I know about it. They have a pet velociraptor or whatever. So Runaways I haven't seen, but I need to watch it. But I kind of, but again, my motivation for watching it is kind of nulled. It's kind of dulled because it's not connected to the MCU. And they haven't deliberately said this, that this TV stuff doesn't count anymore, but at the way they treat it, that's pretty much how it is. So the MCU was kind of at one point this big shining dream of an interconnected universe that transcended mediums TV, movies. Well, I guess just TV and movies. Comic books never, they had they were never really beholden to the tie-in comic books. They were more or less just kind of there to plug up some loose ends that didn't get touched on in the movies, like the leader from The Incredible Hulk. You had that tease at the end of The Incredible Hulk of the leader, and then they just didn't do anything with that. So then they made a Black Widow comic kind of dealing with that, I think. So then after a certain point, there's this great big divide between TV and movies, and then the MCU just kind of seemed a little less shiny from then on, including the TV stuff. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is the one that I will fight for still being connected to the MCU, even if you do have to say, okay, and then season 5 they go into a different timeline. I think that's fine. That's comic books, that's superheroes, sci-fi stuff, so I think that's totally acceptable. But unless we actually start to get crossovers where they bring in Charlie Cox to play Matt Murdock / Daredevil in the next Spider-Man movie, like some people are wanting, I would not mind that. Unless we start getting crossovers like that, the Netflix and other stuff connected to that is just so far detached that it's like, this stuff is in its own Marvel universe. They might have had an Avengers Battle of New York, but there's not, and the bigger thing about why the Netflix stuff is maybe not, I'm kind of more on the line of Marvel Netflix is not part of the MCU, is because of what's her name, Viola Davis. She was in Civil War, and then she was also in Luke Cage playing 2 different characters. So I mean the MCU has had to do some recastings. Edward Norton to Mark Ruffalo as the Hulk, obviously. Yeah, another big one is is Terrence Howard to I'm forgetting these names all of a sudden. Is Fearfeck. Shab. I'm forgetting his name. I feel really bad because he's been Rhodey longer than Terrence Howard was. You know who, War Machine. The whole War Machine recasting. You get it. So that's the fact that they have the same actress playing 2 different people is not really that big a deal, but still it's kind of the MCU Netflix stuff just doesn't count in my mind at this point. But S.H.I.E.L.D., I'm going to fight for S.H.I.E.L.D. being a part of the MCU because of how intrinsically tied it was at the beginning. Winter Soldier, Age of Ultron, Sokovia Accords, that had a big impact on the show, and then. So yeah, maybe pipe dreams in a couple years we will get Agent May showing up in a future movie, or they're going to talk about S.W.O.R.D. and Agent Daisy Johnson, something like that, and how they're off in space. Maybe they could link up with Fury and the Skrulls. There's a way to there's a place to take that story. I don't know. Maybe they'll be in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 or something like that. I don't know. I will hold out hope that they can piece some stuff back together. And now that they've kind of got now that Kevin Feige's got a firm grip over everything, maybe now we can kind of get some more cohesion, out of things like they originally kind of talked about back in the day. So yeah. So that's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. It's over. I am really, really, really going to miss this show. It was so fun, and we've spent more time with these characters than we have Iron Man or Captain America or Thor, because they did 136 episodes. If you had told the people that tuned out of the show back in 2013 during season 1, if you told them that the show was going to run for 136 episodes, I don't think they would have believed you. And if you had told me that, I would, based on how I liked the show back then, I think I would have believed you, and I would be very happy to know that, because I saw the potential there immediately as soon as the show started. It's like. Yeah, and then, Monster of the Week, to a little more serialized, we have this story to tell that will take the entire season, building up to these big plot points we have, yeah. And even then, season 1 wasn't as monster of the week as people make it out to be, because you had the big mystery about the 084 and Daisy and her origin, and that progressed into season 2 as well. And then, of course, the Hydra twist and everything, and you realized everything was kind of building up to that. So, yeah, I mean, I'm so happy this show exists. I can remember watching Coulson die in the Avengers and being so distraught by this. It's like, oh no. It's like, man, I hope they bring him back in a movie or something as an LMD or something. And then hearing that they were going to make Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and that Coulson was going to be the star of it. And it's like, I mean, Agent Coulson, my goodness, has there ever been a side character that has had as big of an impact on a universe, on a fictional universe, as Agent Coulson? I'm not talking, I mean, you could look at some characters like Boba Fett or something from Star Wars, but, I mean, Agent Coulson was a phenomenon. I mean, #Coulson lives. My goodness, that was a movement that partially helped Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. get created in the first place. So, I mean, kudos to Clark Gregg for finding a role and being able to play it for over 10 years. And not a lot of actors can say that they got to play a character for that long and that frequently. So even Harrison Ford, did these 3 Star Wars movies in the late 70s to early 80s, and then 40 years went by, and then he came back to do it 1.5 more times, sort of, kind of. It's like, yeah, there's he's played the character over a long period of time, but there was a big gap in between the times where he did play the character. Clark Gregg was Agent Coulson consistently for over 10 years, and that's basically the only thing he's done in the last 10 years outside of like Joss Whedon's Shakespeare thing that came out like right after Avengers or something like that. So yeah, man, what a show. I'm so glad it happened, and I want to thank you guys for watching these reviews. I hope you guys enjoyed the show too. I certainly did, and now I'm really tempted to go back and start it from the beginning. So thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys later, I guess, because this is it. So yeah, thank you for watching. Goodbye.